For millions of years, the Amazon was not a forest, but a flooded plain waiting for its own destiny. Its story began when the Andes rose like a stone wall against the sky, blocking ancient oceans and forcing rivers to turn back toward the heart of South America. That inversion rewrote the map of an entire continent. Water became the author of everything that would follow. What we call the Amazon rainforest is not just a forest, but a body shaped by currents, a living machine built from humidity, pressure, and time. Every tree, every root, every creature here is the echo of water learning how to breathe. In the flood season, the rivers expand and swallow the land. In the dry months, the forest exhales and reveals its hidden architecture. This pulse of water is the true heartbeat of the Amazon. It rises, falls, cleanses, destroys, restores. Nothing in this world survives without obeying its rhythm. Even sunlight is filtered through this aquatic logic. The canopy holds moisture like a vast green ocean, suspended above the ground. Raindrops evaporate, rise again, condense, and return as storms that begin in one country and fall in another. Scientists call this a flying river. But here, the people simply say that the forest makes its own sky. Life follows this cycle with perfect submission. Leaves grow thin or thick depending on light. Roots stretch sideways instead of deep because the soil is ancient and poor. What feeds the forest is not earth, but decay, moisture time. And in this kingdom, sculpted by water, serpents emerged as silent daughters of the flood. The anaconda learned to wrap its muscles around the slow breath of the river. The boa mastered camouflage in the shadowed understory. The bushmaster shaped its venom through humidity and patience. Each species carries the signature of the environment that forged it. Their bodies are archives of evolution, storing the memory of water in bone, muscle, and instinct. The Amazon did not create predators for violence, but for balance. The serpents here do not fight for dominance. They navigate a web so complex that removing one thread collapses everything around it. A rodent population rises, seeds disappear, trees fail to germinate, birds abandon nesting sites. A single imbalance becomes a chain reaction. Nothing survives alone. Everything is woven together. Even the largest trees depend on the smallest fungi. Even the heaviest rains depend on the softest leaves. And the serpents move quietly within the system, regulating, recycling, correcting. They are not villains of the forest, but stabilizers of its equations. The Amazon is often described as chaotic, but in truth it is precise. Every organism holds a purpose. Every movement is part of a larger rhythm. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is accidental. What appears wild is actually governed by ancient rules written not in stone but in water. As we enter deeper into this living labyrinth, we begin to understand the secret of the Amazon. It is not a place. It is a process. It grows itself, feeds itself, floods itself, heals itself. And the serpents, born from moisture and shadow, move through this world like threads stitching its past to its future. Here, life does not simply exist. It circulates. It pulses. It listens to the water that created it. And the deeper we go, the more one truth becomes undeniable. The Amazon is not a forest built by trees. It is a universe built by water, balanced by predators, and kept alive by a web so delicate that even silence is part of its structure. The forest floor of the Amazon is not a place. It is a sensation, a dense world of heavy air, dim light, and silence so thick it feels alive. Here, sunlight fades before touching the ground. Colors dissolve into shadow. Every step is softened by layers of leaves that have fallen, decomposed, and returned to the cycle of life. It is a realm built for creatures that move without being seen. And nothing embodies this world more perfectly than the serpents that rule it. At ground level, vision becomes almost useless. Smell, heat, and vibration become the true languages of survival. Mammals scurry through tunnels of roots, guided by instinct and fear. Insects crawl in streams like living rivers. Frogs hide in pockets of moisture, holding their breath at the slightest tremor. But the serpent does not rush, does not panic, does not reveal itself. It waits. The bushmaster, the legendary Surikukapico de Jacka, lies motionless for hours or days. Its thick, Earth-patterned skin mirrors the forest floor so precisely that even experienced researchers can step within centimeters of it without noticing. It does not need to move. The world comes to it. Heat-sensing pits register the faint warmth of a passing rodent. The serpent measures distance without sight, analyzes movement without sound, and strikes with a precision that feels unreal inside such darkness. To the prey, death arrives before perception. Alongside the bushmaster, Jararaca de Norte weave themselves into this labyrinth with different rules. They coil beneath decaying logs, inside root tangles, or under palm fronds. Their bodies are patterned with irregular shapes that mimic broken light, decomposing plants, or patches of moss. Camouflage is not decoration here. It is architecture. A jararaca that fails to disappear becomes prey to the larger forces of the forest. The Amazon does not reward beauty. It rewards invisibility. But serpents are not the only silent hunters of the understory. The jaguar moves with a soundless confidence that defies its size. Its paws land softly, distributing weight across broad pads. It is a shadow among shadows, a ghost made of muscle. While the serpents wait, the jaguar searches. While the serpents strike once, the jaguar can chase, swim, climb. But even this apex predator relies on the same sensory codes that dominate the forest floor. Smell, heat, stillness, patience. The giant black caiman, lurking near flooded edges, occupies the boundary between land and water. Its armored body reflects the ancient design of reptiles that existed long before the forest itself. When a serpent shares space with a caiman, neither seeks confrontation. Both simply occupy their niche in the web that sustains everything. Even spiders the size of a human hand patrol this world with quiet authority. Tarantulas emerge at dusk, sensing vibrations through their legs like antennae pressed against the earth. Scorpions hunt by feeling shifts in air pressure. Every predator here is defined not by the violence it can unleash, but by the silence it can maintain. In this shadowed world, energy is the most valuable currency. A serpent may wait days before a single strike. A jaguar may stalk for hours before a leap. Nothing wastes strength because survival in darkness is an equation of patience. The forest floor is not chaotic. It is mathematical. Every predator is a variable balancing the population of rodents, birds, insects, and other reptiles. Without serpents, small mammals explode in number, devouring seeds and erasing the next generation of trees. Without spiders and scorpions, insect populations unravel the decomposition cycle. Every life here corrects another. This is the silent logic of the Amazon. And in this logic, serpents are essential. They remove the weak, the small, the numerous. They shape the forest more through absence than action. A rodent that never reaches adulthood means a seed that never becomes food for another predator. The forest floor is a place where stories unfold without sound, where predators vanish into leaf litter, where death comes quietly and purposefully. In this labyrinth, movement is a message and stillness is power, and the serpents have mastered both. Every coil is a calculation. Every breath is rationed. Every strike is the final line in an equation written in darkness. Beneath the towering trees and the endless canopy, the true Amazon is here, pressed against the ground, breathing through shadows, governed by creatures that survive not by domination, but by disappearing into the world they rule. To understand the forest floor, we must learn to see as the serpent sees. The human eye searches for shapes and movement. The serpent searches for temperature, pressure, and rhythm. What looks like a pile of leaves to us may be a living map of thermal signatures to a pit viper. A mouse scurrying through the debris creates a pulse of heat that stands out like a lantern. A bird's body radiates warmth into the air, forming invisible trails. Even the sun itself paints shifting gradients of temperature across the soil. To a serpent, the dark is not dark. It is information. This is why serpents excel in the understory. They do not need light. They need contrast. And the Amazon provides contrast in abundance. The air is thick with humidity, muffling sound but carrying scent. The ground is soft, absorbing footsteps but transmitting vibration. Evolution has built the serpent into a machine that reads the world through silence. Its tongue samples particles in the air, comparing chemical signatures from left and right to determine direction. Its muscles can hold perfectly still, saving energy that would be wasted in a chase. Its strike is not fueled by anger, but by geometry. Meanwhile, above the serpents but still anchored to the forest floor, other hunters rewrite their own rules. The margay, a small spotted cat, uses vocal mimicry to lure prey. It can imitate the cry of a distressed baby monkey, drawing curious adults closer. This deception echoes through the darkness and demonstrates how the forest is built on strategies rather than strength. Even insects follow this principle. Leafcutter ants march in endless columns, trimming vegetation with a precision that rivals human agriculture. They transport leaves not to feed themselves, but to cultivate fungus inside underground chambers. The forest depends on them to break down plant matter, feeding nutrients back into the soil. Serpents depend on the rodents that feed on the fungi and seeds. Birds depend on those serpents to regulate populations. Everything is built upon everything else. In this world, the serpent is not a monster but a manager. Remove it, and the system collapses. The forest floor is also a realm of communication we cannot hear. Frogs croak at frequencies masked by rain. Insects tap on leaves like drums made of cellulose. Even plants speak in their own way through chemical signals released into the air when damaged. These signals summon predators that protect them by feeding on herbivores. The forest is a hidden battlefield of smells and vibrations, and serpents navigate it like archivists of instinct. Yet, for all the danger, the forest floor is also a sanctuary. It offers shelter from heavy rains, protection from falling branches, and stable temperatures. It is a cradle for eggs, a refuge for newborns, a feeding ground for adults. Each depression in the soil, each hollow under a log, each tangle of vines can hold an entire story. Still, the predators that inhabit this darkness must constantly adapt. The jaguar sharpens its senses to pierce the shadows. The caiman rises from muddy water like a memory from the age of dinosaurs. The tarantula stretches its legs to detect the faintest tremor, and the serpents remain the quiet mathematicians of this realm, performing their calculations through stillness. What makes this world even more extraordinary is that despite the dangers, despite the predators that move unseen, the system never spirals out of control. The Amazon has perfected balance. Death is never wasteful here. Life is never accidental. Every strike of a serpent, every hunt of a jaguar, every step of an ant contributes to the unseen architecture of survival. And so, the forest floor continues its eternal cycle. Darkness feeds life. Life feeds predators. Predators feed the health of the forest. And the serpents, camouflaged among roots and shadows, carry out their roles with a precision that evolution has refined over millions of years. This place is not frightening because of what hunts in the dark. It is magnificent because everything in the dark has purpose. Here, silence is not emptiness. Silence is a language, and the serpents speak it better than any other creature alive. To understand the Amazon, you must surrender to the rivers. They are not just waterways, but highways of evolution, corridors of oxygen, and the veins of the largest forest on Earth. The Amazon River alone pours more water into the ocean than the next 7 largest rivers combined. Yet behind that immensity hides a system of smaller arteries. Blackwater rivers tinted by decaying leaves, clearwater rivers born from ancient shields of stone, and whitewater rivers carrying sediments from the Andes. Each river has its own chemistry, its own creatures, its own rhythm, and within these shifting waters, one animal reigns with unmatched power. The green anaconda, the sucuri. The sucuri is not simply big. It is engineered by water. Its body is dense enough to sink, but buoyant enough to glide. Its muscles are arranged like spiraling cables that amplify strength without sacrificing control. Its eyes and nostrils sit atop its skull, allowing it to vanish beneath the surface, with only 2 small points breaking the waterline. Evolution sculpted it not as a predator of speed, but of certainty. It does not chase. It waits until the river delivers life to its shadow. In silence, in patience, in precision. As capybaras graze along riverbanks, they rarely notice the faint ripple that is not a ripple at all. The sucuri feels vibrations through its jawbones, senses the heat of warm-blooded bodies through the water, and calculates distance with a mathematician's mind. The river hides everything except the moment of truth. When the anaconda strikes, it is not an attack. It is a decision, a sudden explosion from a creature that, moments before, seemed like nothing more than submerged vegetation. Its jaws clamp down with backward-facing teeth that anchor into fur or scales. Its coils tighten with a pressure that is measured, not brutal. The security does not crush. It collapses the ability to inhale. Each tightening is synced with the prey's heartbeat. Every exhale becomes the last exhale, and the river watches without a ripple. But the security is not a tyrant here. It is a stabilizer. Capybara populations would explode without it. Caiman nests would suffer predation imbalance. Even river birds rely on the equilibrium created by apex predators. Nothing in the Amazon thrives alone. The anaconda's presence shapes the behavior of everything around it. Even the giant otters, fierce and intelligent hunters, move cautiously when securists patrol their territory. These otters can kill young snakes, but respect adults that reach the mass of a grown man. Their interactions are not battles. They are negotiations.
Each species understands the other's capabilities because evolution has taught them through millennia of encounters. What makes the sucuri extraordinary is not that it kills, but how it moves between the worlds. On land, it is heavy, deliberate, almost clumsy. In water, it becomes a whisper, a seamless thread of life drifting through submerged grasses, fallen trunks, and swirling currents. A creature so massive should not move with such elegance. Yet it does, because water is its element, its camouflage, its security. In the rivers of the Amazon, even time moves differently. Seasons reshape everything. When waters rise, entire forests become submerged for months. Trees become pillars in an underwater cathedral. Fish swim where monkeys once ran, and the sucuri adapts to this new architecture. It glides between trunks, hunting in a three-dimensional world where gravity becomes irrelevant. When waters recede, the river contracts, concentrating life into smaller basins. Competition intensifies, predators gather, and the anaconda becomes more selective, conserving energy, feeding rarely but efficiently. Its metabolism allows it to survive months without another meal. Efficiency is its true weapon. Everything about the sucuri is optimized for minimal waste, movement, strike, digestion, survival. Even reproduction follows the logic of the river. Females choose the warmest, quietest waters to gestate. Males gather in mating balls where strength and persistence determine who contributes to the next generation. Life begins in water and returns to water, completing a cycle older than the forest itself. To witness a sucuri in its empire is to understand that the Amazon is not ruled by sharpness or aggression, but by organisms that adapt perfectly to their environment. The anaconda is not feared because it is violent. It is respected because it is inevitable. Wherever the water flows, the sucuri is present. Wherever silence deepens, the sucuri waits. Wherever balance falters, the sucuri restores it through the simple, ancient act of being exactly what evolution designed it to be. The Amazon's rivers hide their greatest mysteries beneath layers of silence. Every current carries stories written in mud and algae. Every flooded branch becomes a stage for survival. And in this liquid world, the sucuri is both sculptor and spectator. A creature shaped by stillness, a presence that rewrites the meaning of power. To swim where a sucuri swims is to enter a realm where sound loses its meaning. Water absorbs movement, turning even large animals into shadows. The river communicates through pressure rather than noise. A fish darting sends a faint wave. A caiman adjusting its weight creates a pulse of displacement. A bird landing near the surface creates circular ripples that speak to creatures below. The sucuri reads all of it. Its body is a continuous sensor. Muscle, skin, and bone work together to interpret the world without sight. Even its heartbeat slows when submerged, allowing it to remain undetected for long periods. It is a master of disappearing into stillness. Predators often rely on speed or violence to dominate their environment, The Sucuri relies on invisibility. It becomes part of the river, part of the vegetation, part of the water's heavy breath. When prey approaches, the snake does not ambush immediately. It waits for the perfect alignment of opportunity and energy conservation. Each strike is a rare investment. This restraint is why the Sucuri is so successful. It does not waste resources. It embodies the Amazon's fundamental rule: nothing unnecessary survives. Encounters with caimans reveal this evolutionary wisdom. While rare, these meetings are some of the most extraordinary demonstrations of coexistence in the animal kingdom. Both predators are apex forces, but neither seeks confrontation unless compelled. A caiman basking on a log may share the same waters with a Sucuri resting beneath submerged roots. Their lives intersect, but do not collide. The Amazon has no room for pointless conflict. Energy is too precious. Even birds participate in this riverine dance. Herons, storks, egrets, and hawks scour the water's edge for fish, insects, and small mammals. They know the Sucuri's habit of positioning near shallow banks. Their vigilance is not fear, it is respect. They adapt their feeding strategies to avoid areas where a large anaconda may lurk. Over generations, instincts refine themselves until avoidance becomes an inherited pattern. This is how ecosystems remain stable, through quiet conversations between species. Capybaras, perhaps the most iconic companions in the Sucuri's empire, demonstrate another layer of this balance. They travel in groups, communicate through barks and whistles, and always keep at least one individual alert. They know the water's promise and its danger. Capybaras are strong swimmers, but their confidence is tested in the presence of a Sucuri. A moment's lapse can become a fatal mistake. Yet, without this predator, capybaras would overgraze riverbanks, destabilizing soil, affecting tree growth, and altering the entire riparian ecosystem. The Sucuri prevents excess. It prunes the web of life. It maintains the blueprint that the river wrote. Even giant otters, bold and social hunters, understand this relationship. They defend territories fiercely, hunt cooperatively, and communicate with a complex language of whistles and growls. But when a mature anaconda crosses their domain, they do not confront blindly. They assess, they calculate, they choose whether to challenge or yield based on the snake's size and confidence. This mutual respect defines Amazonian life. Every encounter is strategic rather than reckless. This riverine world also shapes the Sucuri's anatomy in ways no land predator can replicate. Its skin is smooth and water-repellent. Its tail acts like a rudder. Its spine curves through water with minimal drag. Its lung capacity allows it to stay submerged for up to 10 minutes. Its ability to modulate buoyancy lets it choose between sinking or rising with near-perfect control. These adaptations allow a creature weighing hundreds of kilograms to move as if weightless. Watching a Sucuri glide is watching physics surrender to biology. As the Amazon evolves through seasons, so does the snake's behavior. During floods, Sucurus explore submerged forests, hunting fish, caimans, and even birds perch low on flooded branches. During droughts, they retreat into deep channels, conserving energy, waiting for rain to restore their empire. Through every change, the Sucuri remains the quiet architect of the river. It does not roar, it does not charge, it does not flaunt dominance. It simply exists with such precision that the river itself seems to make room for it. In the Amazon, power is not loud, power is patient. And no creature embodies this philosophy more completely than the anaconda. It is the river made flesh, the silence of water given shape, the Amazon's most perfect expression of strength through stillness. The deeper we move into the Amazon, the ground becomes less important. Life rises. It stacks itself layer upon layer until the forest becomes a vertical universe. Light filters through the canopy in fractured beams, touching only what the trees allow. Humidity clings to every surface, turning branches into living bridges wrapped in moss, orchids, vines, and shadows. This is the interior forest, a world suspended above the earth. where serpents have learned to move through air as if it were solid ground. Arboreal snakes, especially the boids and slender tree-dwelling species, navigate this three-dimensional maze with a grace that defies logic. Their bodies are long, muscular ropes capable of distributing weight across thin branches, adjusting tension with microscopic precision. A single miscalculated movement could send them falling dozens of meters, yet they rarely slip. Evolution has transformed their muscles into instruments of balance, their scales into gripping surfaces, and their instincts into a perfect internal compass. The boa constrictor, though often associated with the forest floor, is a master of this suspended world. It climbs with deliberate strength, wrapping itself around tilted trunks and looping across branches that sway under its weight. In the canopy, every branch is a highway and every shadow a hiding place. The boa moves slowly not out of weakness, but because patience is the only strategy that makes sense among trees. Speed is dangerous here, stillness is survival. For smaller arboreal species, motion becomes almost serpentine choreography. They stretch, anchor, extend, and reposition their entire bodies in silence. Each movement is calculated, each pause strategic. These snakes hunt birds, lizards, and small mammals that rarely touch the ground. Their vision is sharper than that of ground-dwelling species, adapted to detect movement against a background of shifting leaves. Their colors mimic sunlight-dappled foliage, turning them invisible in plain sight. Above them, the canopy is alive with creatures that have learned to survive by avoiding precisely these predators. Squirrel monkeys leap between branches so quickly that they appear to fly. Their bodies are tuned for speed, agility, and constant awareness. A single still serpent coiled on a branch can stop an entire troop mid-movement. Alarm calls echo across the canopy, triggering a chain reaction of warnings among different species. Toucans adjust their perches. Sloths freeze against tree trunks. Even macaws shift their flight patterns. The presence of a serpent becomes a broadcast across the treetops, carried by vision, sound, and instinct. But predation is only part of the story. The canopy is also a system of vertical ecology. Each layer of height supports different temperatures, moisture levels, and food sources. A branch 10 meters above the ground may host insects that do not exist 5 meters higher. Frogs cling to bromeliads that catch rainwater like natural cups, creating microponds where life cycles begin and end in silence. Birds nest in hollow trunks where serpents wait for the scent of newly hatched chicks. The forest interior is a collage of interconnected worlds stacked above one another. Serpents serve as unifying threads, traveling between these layers to balance populations, disperse energy, and maintain equilibrium. They bridge the forest floor and the sky. In this elevated realm, snakes also face challenges unseen below. Wind gusts can disrupt movement. Branches weakened by rain can snap without warning. Predators, such as harpy eagles, patrol the canopy with eyes adapted to detect subtle motion. These eagles, among the most powerful birds on Earth, can snatch monkeys from branches with enough force to break bones. Serpents know this. Their stillness is not only a hunting tactic, but a shield against detection. Even the boa, formidable as it is, becomes vulnerable in the open air. Its safety lies in blending with the bark and shadows. The higher we observe, the more we see the forest as a vertical puzzle. Roots anchor the trees, but the canopy determines their destiny. Sunlight is currency. Moisture is memory. Each species pays for its survival with adaptation, and serpents have mastered the economy of the trees. They move where others cannot, survive where many fail, and hunt with an elegance shaped by millions of years of listening to the forest breathe. The Amazon's interior forest is not a place of chaos. It is a cathedral of branches, leaves, and filtered light. A world where gravity becomes negotiable and silence reigns with absolute authority. And within this suspended universe, serpents glide like shadows that learn to climb toward the sun. In the Amazon, venom is not a weapon, it is a language older than the forest itself. A biochemical alphabet refined over millions of years, written inside glands, expressed through fangs, and understood instantly by every creature that fears the silent strike of a serpent. The tropical vipers of the Amazon, especially the surqueque and the northern jararakas, evolved in an environment that forces precision. Rainy races scent trails. Humidity dilutes chemical cues. Vegetation muffles sound. In such a world, perfection becomes the only viable strategy. The bushmaster, largest of all pit vipers, carries venom that rewrites the internal order of its prey. Hemotoxic molecules spread through tissue, breaking down cells, collapsing blood vessels, and turning the body's own circulatory system into a pathway for digestion. It is not cruelty, it is efficiency. The venom begins the process of feeding before the serpent even touches its meal. This biochemical advantage is essential in a forest where chasing prey would waste enormous energy. A viper may wait days for the right opportunity. When it strikes, the venom completes the task. The Amazon shapes venom the way rivers shape valleys. Constant rain, thick air, and dense vegetation create conditions where prey escapes easily if not immobilized quickly. Evolution responds by sharpening venom's potency, altering its enzymes, and diversifying its effects. Some molecules thin the blood, preventing clotting. Others destroy muscle fibers. Some disrupt nerve communication. Each variation is a response to a challenge posed by the environment. Among the most fascinating elements of venom evolution is its dual purpose. It is a tool for hunting, but also for protection. A predator that attempts to attack a viper risks severe injury or death. Even large animals learn through generations of costly mistakes to respect the coiled stillness of these snakes. A jaguar may kill a viper, but it does so with calculated precision, striking the head to avoid fangs. This knowledge is inherited through instinct and reinforced by observation. In this way, venom serves as both a fence and deterrent, a biological contract respected by predator and prey. The microstructure of venom reveals an intelligence beyond simple toxicity. Proteins fold into complex shapes that bind to specific receptors inside the body of the prey. Enzymes trigger cascades of biochemical reactions that dismantle tissue in a controlled manner. Venom does not act randomly, it acts with purpose. Scientists now understand that venom glands are modified salivary glands, evidence of ancient evolutionary origins. Over millions of years, these glands began producing proteins more potent and targeted than anything found in ordinary saliva. Natural selection favored snakes, whose venom immobilized prey faster, digested tissue more efficiently, or provided stronger defense. The Amazon, with its endless competition and rapid ecological turnover, became the perfect arena for this biological refinement. Yet venom is not limited to serpents. The Amazon is full of creatures that use chemistry as their first line of survival. Poison dart frogs carry alkaloids in their skin that disrupt nerve function. Certain ants deliver painful stings that alter local tissue chemistry. Spiders inject venom that liquefies the insides of their prey. Scorpions wield neurotoxins that paralyze instantly. Each venomous creature contributes to the evolutionary pressure that shapes the forest. In this chemical battleground, serpents emerge as specialists. Their venom must suit to primary needs: rapid immobilization and pre-digestion. A bite that kills too slowly risks losing the prey. A venom that digests too weakly forces the serpent to expend energy during feeding. Evolution hones these variables until they reach equilibrium. This is why Amazonian vipers possess such remarkable biochemical diversity. But the forest also imposes constraints. Heavy rains wash away chemical cues, forcing vipers to rely not only on venom, but on heat detection. Their heat-sensing pits map the warmth of nearby mammals with astonishing precision, forming a thermal image that guides their strike. This synergy of biology, heat detection, venom chemistry, muscle power creates one of the most efficient hunting systems on the planet. In the Amazon, survival is not a matter of who is strongest, but who is most adapted. Venom becomes an extension of the environment, shaped by moisture, temperature, prey behavior, and evolutionary pressure. A serpent's fangs are not weapons of aggression, but instruments of order, maintaining the delicate balance of life in a forest that grows and dies faster than any other ecosystem on Earth. The deeper we study the venom systems of Amazonian snakes, the clearer it becomes that evolution treats chemistry as architecture. Venom is not simply secreted, it is engineered. Each molecule is crafted for a specific purpose, and each purpose emerges from the challenges of the rainforest. In the constant humidity of the Amazon, wounds heal slowly, infections run rampant. Prey animals develop thicker skins, faster reflexes, and sharper senses. To overcome these defenses, serpents adapt at the molecular level. Every generation selects for venom that acts faster, penetrates deeper, or resists dilution by blood and moisture. Rain, often seen as the giver of life, also becomes a sculptor of venom. Heavy downpours reduce scent trails and wash away biological clues that snakes might use to track prey. A venomous strike must therefore be decisive. The prey must weaken quickly, leaving a trail of chemical signatures for the serpent to follow through the forest. Without this efficiency, the snake could lose its meal to scavengers or competing predators. The jararakas excel in this strategy. Their hemotoxic venom spreads rapidly, disrupting the internal structures of their prey, causing pain and disorientation. The prey's attempt to flee becomes an act of self-destruction as its weakened body fails under the biochemical assault. This is evolution's quiet brilliance. The prey does not die immediately, giving the snake time to follow it. But it cannot escape entirely. Its body is already surrendering. Other Amazonian vipers specialize further. Some evolve venom with neurotoxic components, affecting the nervous system, causing paralysis or respiratory difficulties. These variations arise because not all prey is the same. Birds react differently than mammals. Frogs require different mechanisms for mobilization. The forest diversity demands adaptability. This biochemical arms race does not occur in isolation. Other venomous creatures exert pressure on their ecosystems. Poison dart frogs signal their toxicity with bright colors, warning predators to stay away. Spiders modify their venom for prey-specific digestion. Even certain caterpillars contain toxins powerful enough to deter birds. With so many organisms relying on chemical defense, the Amazon becomes a laboratory of molecular innovation. In this chemical landscape, serpents become both predators and regulators. They control the populations of rodents, small mammals, and birds, preventing overgrazing and helping maintain plant diversity. Venom is not only a hunting tool, but a mechanism of ecological balance. Without snakes, the cascade of consequences would be immediate and severe. Rodents would multiply rapidly, devouring seeds and destabilizing the forest's regenerative cycle. Birds would lose equilibrium in their nesting grounds. The entire structure of the Amazon would begin to collapse. The evolution of venom also reflects the Amazon's philosophy of efficiency. A serpent does not waste energy. It strikes once, trusts its biology, and waits for nature to complete the process. This contrasts with predators like felines, which expend enormous energy during hunts. The serpent conserves every ounce of strength, letting chemistry do the work. This energy logic is mirrored in digestion. Once the prey is subdued, the venom that began breaking down tissue continues its role internally. Enzymes soften muscle, dissolve connective tissue, and allow the snake's powerful stomach acids to complete digestion. The body becomes liquid nutrition, absorbed slowly over days or weeks. This ability to feed infrequently gives snakes a unique advantage in an environment where food availability fluctuates with the seasons. During droughts, prey becomes scarce, yet a viper that fed weeks earlier can survive on stored energy. Its metabolism slows, heart rate decreases, and the serpent enters a state of controlled conservation. Venom, digestion, and metabolism form a triangle of survival perfected by evolution. Even reproduction is shaped by venom. Females require significant energy reserves to produce offspring. A successful kill can determine whether a female reproduces that year. The forest pressure never stops. Every decision, every successful strike, every biochemical adaptation represents millions of years of trial, error, and refinement. In the Amazon, venom is not a symbol of fear, it is a masterpiece of evolution. A silent partnership between predator and environment, a testament to the intelligence of nature. And above all, a reminder that survival in the rainforest is achieved not through brute force, but through systems that operate with precision, intention, and respect for the delicate balance of life. Beneath the towering trees and the overwhelming scale of the Amazon, there exists an entire universe that most eyes will never see. A world built not by giants, but by creatures so small, so precise, so essential that without them the rainforest would collapse within a single generation. These micro-worlds define the pulse of the forest more profoundly than any predator, any flood, any storm. They are the architects of decomposition, the guardians of renewal, and the foundation upon which every serpent, every mammal, every bird depends. In the damp soil where sunlight never reaches, armies of ants carve intricate highways through leaf litter. Leafcutter ants, in particular, march in endless lines carrying fragments far larger than their own bodies. To an outside observer, they seem to be harvesting leaves. But the truth is far more sophisticated. These ants are farmers. They transport the leaves not to consume them, but to cultivate a subterranean fungus that serves as their primary food source. This agricultural system is millions of years older than human farming and operates with a precision unmatched by any human crop. The leafcutter ants prune the forest continuously, shaping the vegetation and ensuring that decomposition occurs at the exact rhythm the Amazon requires. Their work feeds the soil, their tunnels aerate the ground, their fungus gardens sustain uncountable generations, and snakes, silently moving along the forest floor, depend on the rodents and insects that thrive around these ant-created oases. In the shadowed understory, wrasps venenosus display brilliance in hues of electric blue, neon yellow, and deep crimson. Their vibrant colors warn predators of their toxicity, but these toxins are not created by the frogs themselves. They come from the insects the frogs consume, mainly ants and beetles that feed on poisonous plant compounds. The frog absorbs these chemicals and transforms them into alkaloids stored in its skin. These micro-world interactions reveal a hidden logic. Every venom, every poison, every adaptation is a reflection of relationships at the smallest scale. A serpent that hunts frogs feeds indirectly on the chemistry of plants it will never touch. And so the web grows thicker. At night, the forest glows with faint pulses of bioluminescence. Beetles flicker their signals across the dark like scattered stars trapped beneath the canopy. Some use this glow to attract mates, others to lure prey. A few use light to confuse predators. These luminous insects shape the nocturnal rhythm of the Amazon, attracting insectivores, influencing hunting behavior, and guiding the timing of countless interactions. Even snakes respond to these small glimmers, adjusting their slow movement through the forest based on the activity of prey species that gather around glowing insects. In the tangled webs between branches, jumping spiders perform dances of light, vibration, and movement to communicate. Their vision is among the sharpest of all arthropods, and they navigate the microgeometry of leaves and stems with astonishing precision. These spiders reduce populations of countless insects that would otherwise overwhelm plants. Again, the serpents benefit indirectly. Fewer insects eating seedlings means more forest regeneration. More regeneration means more prey for rodents. More rodents sustain the predators of the soil. And so the micro-world breathes life upward, layer by layer. In the moist air clinging to the ground, fungi weave networks through soil and decaying wood, creating an underground internet known as mycelium. These networks move nutrients between plants, support growth, and break down organic material with breathtaking efficiency. Without fungi, the Amazon soil, already nutrient-poor, would be stripped of everything within years. Entire trees owe their survival to the silent work of these microscopic decomposers. Snakes depend on these processes too. though indirectly. The small mammals they hunt rely on the fruits and seeds delivered by nutrient-rich soil. Without the fungi, the serpent's prey would starve. Without the prey, the serpents would vanish. Microworlds also shape the forest's climate. Termites build mounds that circulate air and regulate humidity. Their towers act like lungs for the forest floor. When colonies thrive, decomposition accelerates. When they collapse, the balance shifts instantly. Even the slightest disruption in these tiny civilizations can lead to chain reactions that echo through the canopy. And then there are the hidden predators, microscopic parasites that regulate populations from within. These organisms, unseen by any camera, influence behavior, weaken hosts, and stabilize the forest demographic structure. Every species that thrives here does so because countless smaller organisms keep it in check. The Amazon is not built from the top down, it is built from the bottom up. Snakes, jaguars, eagles, these are the visible rulers. But the true engineers are the ants, the beetles, the fungi, the microlife pulsing through every centimeter of soil and bark. This microworld determines where serpents find shelter, where their prey hides, where moisture gathers, where decay accelerates. A single fallen leaf becomes a city of insects within hours. A rotting log becomes a nursery for amphibians. A droplet of rain trapped in a bromeliad becomes a universe where tadpoles swim, insects hunt, and life begins in miniature. Even temperature is shaped by these small lives. Decomposition produces heat, creating warm pockets that snakes detect and use for regulating their bodies. The microworld quite literally warms the serpents that rule the Amazon's larger ecosystems. To see the forest clearly, one must shrink their perspective. The giants survive because the tiny ones endure. The serpents dominate because the insects perform their ceaseless labor. The canopy towers because the soil below never stops breathing. In the Amazon, nothing exists alone. And nowhere is this truth more visible than in the micro-worlds that sustain everything from the smallest beetle to the largest anaconda. The Amazon looks eternal from above, a green ocean stretching beyond the horizon, pulsing with storms and sunlight, whispering through millions of leaves that move like the breath of a sleeping titan. But from within, among the roots and rivers, the forest reveals a quieter truth. Eternity was never promised. Even the largest ecosystem on Earth can bleed. And today, the wounds deepen faster than the forest can heal. Every year, thousands of hectares vanish beneath fire, not the natural fires of savannas or woodlands, but flames born from human hands, pushing against the edges of the forest to clear space for cattle, crops, and roads. These fires do not merely burn trees, they erase micro-worlds, displace the invisible engines of decomposition, shatter nutrient cycles, and force animals into shrinking pockets of habitat. A serpent can survive drought, flood, hunger, and time, but it cannot survive losing the ground beneath its coils. Fragmentation is the silent killer. A forest divided into isolated patches loses its flow of life. Animals cannot travel to mate. Seeds no longer disperse naturally. Predators vanish from areas they once ruled. Without predators, rodents surge in number. Their sharp teeth tear through seeds, preventing regeneration. Their expanding populations alter soil composition, degrade plant diversity, and weaken the foundation needed for canopy growth. Removing serpents triggers a chain reaction far beyond their bodies. Without them, the forest loses one of its most efficient regulators. A single viper that once controlled hundreds of rodents a year becomes an absence that ripples through the system. The prey multiplies unchecked. Birds lose nesting ground. Plants fail to reproduce. Insects swarm. The ecosystem begins to tilt, slow at first, then faster, like a giant structure losing its internal supports. The jaguar, another symbol of the Amazon's power, suffers a similar fate. As forests fragment, jaguars lose territory and food. They move closer to human settlements, where conflict becomes inevitable. When apex predators disappear, mid-sized predators like coatis or opossums rise in number. upsetting delicate predation balances. Life reorganizes itself, but not in ways that favor long-term stability. As fires and deforestation carve open wounds across the Amazon, drought intensifies. The forest, once too wet to burn, now dries earlier each year. Rain becomes irregular, rivers shrink, seasonal floods weaken, fish populations decline, aquatic vegetation dies, and the Sucuri, master of the river world, begins to lose the kingdom that shaped its body. Low water exposes it to dangers it never had to consider. Boats, machinery, pollution, oxygen levels drop, prey becomes scarce. Even caimans retreat to shrinking pools, competing for survival instead of thriving in abundance. The river, the author of life, becomes a mirror of stress, and serpents feel this tension first. They require stable cycles, warmth, moisture, predictable prey distributions. When water disappears, so does the logic of their existence. Mining introduces another threat. Mercury-tainted sediments poison fish, which poison otters, dolphins, and birds. These toxins accumulate through the food chain, reaching even terrestrial predators. Venomous snakes consuming contaminated prey accumulate heavy metals in their tissues, weakening them, impairing reproduction, and making them vulnerable to disease. Pollution becomes an unseen venom one evolution never prepared them for. Habitat loss also reduces the number of safe refuges where serpents wait out floods, digest meals, or lay eggs. Without hiding places, predation from birds and mammals increases. Juvenile survival plummets. A population of serpents that appears healthy from afar begins collapsing quietly from within, one generation at a time. But the most dangerous threat lies beyond the visible: climate disruption. The Amazon generates much of its own rainfall. Trees release moisture into the sky, forming clouds that drift and return as storms. When forest cover decreases, rainfall decreases. When rainfall decreases, trees die. When trees die, the forest dries even more. This feedback loop threatens to convert parts of the Amazon into savanna transformation that would erase entire evolutionary systems. Serpents adapted to humidity, shadow, and consistent temperatures would vanish. Venom systems evolved for wet environments would lose efficiency. Prey species would migrate or die. The forest would lose the very mechanisms that sustain its predators and prey. Fragmentation also breaks ancient pathways used by animals for millennia. Serpents that once traveled along continuous corridors now face open fields, roads, and human settlements. Crossing these areas exposes them to vehicles, hunting, and persecution. Even non-venomous snakes are killed on sight due to fear and misunderstanding. Each death represents not just the loss of a predator, but the collapse of a lineage refined over millions of years. The Amazon is not dying in silence. It is warning, through rising temperatures, irregular rains, shrinking rivers, and disappearing species. It signals that the balance, which once seemed eternal, is beginning to fracture. And the serpents, ancient guardians of equilibrium, stand at the front lines of this unraveling web. The forest feels their absence long before humans notice. Where serpents disappear, imbalance grows like a shadow. And where imbalance grows, the forest loses the memory of how to sustain itself. The threats facing the Amazon do not act alone. They intertwine, amplifying one another until the forest becomes a battlefield of pressures that no natural system can endure indefinitely. Fragmentation weakens habitat. Fire accelerates drought. Drought destabilizes rivers. Pollution sickens animals. Climate shifts rewrite seasonal rhythms. Every predator, every plant, every insect feels the tremors of an ecosystem that was once unbreakable. To understand how deeply these threats cut, we must see the Amazon not as a single forest, but as a network of living relationships. Every serpent, every frog, every fungus is part of a vast equation. When humans remove a variable trees, predators, water stability, the entire formula shifts. The forest tries to adapt, but adaptation takes thousands of years. Destruction takes only hours. In some regions, The loss of canopy cover has increased temperatures on the forest floor by more than 10 degrees Celsius. For amphibians and small reptiles, this temperature rise is deadly. Moisture evaporates faster, forcing animals out of hiding in search of cooler microclimates. But those microclimates no longer exist. Without shade, the soil dries. Without moisture, the insects decline. Without insects, the frogs starve. And without frogs and rodents, the serpents lose the foundation of their survival. The decline of one species becomes the decline of another. The Amazon feels these chain reactions with startling sensitivity. When drought increases, trees produce fewer fruits. Mammals migrate to find food. Predators follow them. Territories shift. Conflict intensifies. A jaguar that once avoided an area filled with serpents may now move into it, forcing a redistribution of predation pressure. Serpents that once hid in dense foliage now risk crossing open areas. Each shift leads to another. And slowly, predictability, the most important resource in evolution, disappears. Fires, once rare, now carve flames through the forest with frightening ease. Fallen leaves dry faster. Dead trees become fuel. Wind patterns change, allowing fire to jump across vast distances. These fires burn into the canopy, killing slow-growing giants that took centuries to mature. Without these trees, the structure of the forest collapses. The light changes, the humidity drops. Entire species adapted to shadow can no longer survive. The serpent that relied on darkness finds only harsh sun. The amphibian that required moisture encounters dust. Even birds abandon areas where insect populations no longer recover from fire. As the forest loses complexity, invader species from surrounding areas begin to enter. Grasses from savannas and open pastures spread quickly into burn zones, transforming biodiverse forest floors into monocultures vulnerable to repeated fires. Once this process begins, reversing it becomes nearly impossible. The Amazon shifts from rainforest to fire-prone grassland, and the serpents adapted to humidity. Boas, vipers, anacondas lose the environmental logic that shaped their evolution. Even the rivers, the heart of the Amazon, feel the weight of fragmentation. As deforestation advances along river banks, soil erodes into the water. Sediment clouds the currents. Fish decline. Flood cycles become unpredictable. When waters fail to rise, the floodplain trees that depend on seasonal submersion weaken. Birds that nest along river edges lose habitat. Aquatic mammals struggle as prey disappears. And the sucuri, which depends on stable river ecosystems, finds its empire shrinking. In some regions, hydroelectric dams further alter this natural architecture. Dams disrupt sediment flow, change water temperature, block the migration of fish, and modify flood timings. The river becomes regulated by machinery rather than by the ancient rhythms of the forest. The sucuri cannot adapt to artificial seasons. It must follow the river's natural pulse or perish. Fragmentation also weakens genetic diversity. When populations of snakes become isolated, they lose the genetic variability necessary to adapt to new threats: heat waves, disease, prey shortages. Inbreeding increases, fertility decreases. Disease spreads more easily. Over time, these small populations face extinction even without direct human interference. The forest collapse accelerates silently. Humans often misunderstand the importance of predators. They assume the forest can thrive without them. But predators are the engineers of ecological order. Serpents regulate prey. Jaguars regulate mid-level predators. Raptors regulate arboreal mammals. When predators vanish, the system becomes unstable. Prey becomes abundant, plants disappear, soil degrades. The forest fractures into biological chaos. What makes the Amazon's threats so devastating is not their power, but their speed. Evolution cannot keep pace. Serpents that once adapted slowly to thousands of seasonal cycles now face changes that occur within a single decade. Rainfall patterns shift unpredictably. Temperature extremes appear suddenly. Food availability fluctuates violently. In such conditions, Even the most ancient adaptations lose their relevance. And yet, the forest continues to send signals of resilience. Young trees grow in burned areas. Animals return to places once destroyed. Seeds carried by wind and water find new ground. But resilience has limits. If destruction outpaces regeneration, even the Amazon, the world's most powerful engine of life, will reach a breaking point. The serpents feel this approaching threshold first. Their disappearance is the forest's warning, a sign that the web of life is stretching beyond its ability to repair itself. The Amazon has endured for millions of years, but its future now depends on whether the forces tearing it apart can be slowed before the balance collapses completely. The forest does not fear extinction, but it grieves imbalance, and in its grief, it calls out through silence, through heat, through shrinking rivers, urging us to understand that losing the Amazon means losing the memory of how life sustains itself on Earth. The Amazon is not only a forest, it is a mind, a living consciousness built from moisture, roots, silence, and ancient memory. Every creature that moves through it becomes part of its philosophy, but none embody its teachings more completely than the serpents. They are the forest's metaphors made flesh. In their stillness, the selva reveals its first lesson. Power does not require noise. A serpent moves without announcing itself. It survives by listening more than acting. It waits not from weakness, but from wisdom. In a world of rushing water and chaotic life, the serpent thrives through patience. This rhythm teaches that timing matters more than speed, and that true strength flows from restraint. The second lesson lies in precision. A serpent wastes nothing. Every movement serves a purpose. Every strike is a calculation. In the Amazon, where energy is scarce and survival is a delicate equation, the serpent becomes a symbol of perfect efficiency. It reminds us that life is sustained by choosing carefully when to act and when to remain still. Above the forest floor, filtered sunlight forms shifting mosaics, illuminating how the Amazon conceals meaning in layers. The branches hold one truth, the rivers hold another. The shadows carry their own. The forest mirrors the human mind, with hidden chambers, fears, memories, and instincts woven into a vast internal jungle. Serpents become guides in this metaphorical landscape. Their movements show how to navigate darkness without fear, how to find clarity through silence, and how to shed old versions of ourselves the way they shed their skin. Renewal is not an event, but a cycle. To survive, one must let go. The serpent's most ancient symbolism resonates deeply here. Across cultures, it has represented rebirth, transformation, energy, knowledge. These meanings do not come from myth alone. They come from watching the animal in its true environment. In the Amazon, the serpent is neither villain nor predator. It is balance. It is the quiet force that keeps the forest alive. And in its presence, the selva offers its final teaching. Everything is connected. A serpent's absence reshapes the lives of birds, rodents, plants, fungi, even the rivers themselves. To remove one thread is to unravel the whole tapestry. The forest whispers this truth to anyone who listens. The Amazon does not ask to be conquered or solved. Its philosophy is simple: move with intention, respect the unseen, embrace cycles, and remember that the world, like the forest, survives through connection. The Amazon does not end. It fades into its own horizon, breathing in cycles older than memory and stronger than time. As dusk settles, mist rises between the trees like thoughts drifting through a living mind. The rivers darken, the canopy glows faintly with the last light, and somewhere in the silence, a serpent glides through shadow, unchanged by centuries, witness to everything the forest has endured. It does not hurry, it does not fear, it simply moves with the same certainty that shaped its ancestors. In its calm presence, the selva reveals its truth. The Amazon does not ask for understanding. It asks for attention. It asks that we hear the rhythm beneath the noise, the wisdom hidden in stillness, the warnings carried in shrinking rivers and quiet absences. This forest is not a place to conquer, but a living mind inviting us to listen. And as long as serpents continue to move through its shadows, the Amazon story remains alive, written in scales, water, and silence.